it's more acceptable. And the cops just kind of look the other
It's
way.
the nightlife type thing.
Right.
Like, it's not cafe.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just, not dispensary and things like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's weird. It's getting more like the brewery
Yes.
scene up north. It's feeling like you can go and sit at a cannabis dispensary and try some of their new soda and shit like that. Like, it's feeling like Amsterdam.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's so awesome.
When I come down here, I'm often getting like sticks and stones, crummy looking weed.
Oh, yeah.
That stuff's not coming from California. That stuff's not prepackaged. Is that sun-grown stuff? Are they still growing sun-grown stuff out here?
They might be, but I think also that it depends on how it's packaged in California.
Yeah.
If it's not packaged the right way, then it won't fluff back up. Because I've seen it. I've seen it packaged and then it like
It sort of squishes down.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like, I don't know. This is not the kind of stuff that I see
This is
in Cali.
Yeah.
That's not the sort of stuff I'd see in dispensaries.
Yeah.
It seems longer and
this is like homegrown.
This is
type
homegrown
thing.
stuff. So there are some people doing some homegrown, and honestly, it's not bad.
Yeah, it smells
nice.
good.
Like, it's not a bad weed, but you can't test for it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what it is.
Yeah.
You can't return anything. And so I try it, and I'm like, oh, it's kind of getting me a little paranoid, a little hyped up. And I think if I was back in California, I
know exactly
I could
what it
return
is.
it.
Yeah.
How do you learn about what you're smoking?
It's hard. I don't go to more than one person. And for me, thankfully, if I tell him it's something I don't like, he'll take it back because I only deal with him. I have more people on call, but I mainly deal with him.
Yeah.
Because I just like to deal with one person.
You gotta go to somebody you trust.
Yeah.
Trust
yeah.
their
And then,
stuff.
like I said, if I say I don't like it, not a week later or something like that, but if it's the same day or the next day, he'll be like, okay, well, I have this or I have that. And I know sometimes he might not know exactly. Sometimes people say, oh, this is OG. They might say it's something, but it's not really that.
Yeah.
Just because a lot of people like names out here,
Right.
but they can't prove that it's that or not. But certain strands are identifiable by smell.
Yeah,
easily.
yeah. So they want some of the old school, some of the names that you know.
These new hybrids are like, I don't know. They
I
come
know.
up with these odd names, and I'm like, well, is it a sativa? Is it an indica? Like, that's the important.
What's it going to make me feel? That's what I want to know.
Mm-hmm.
And now we've got websites that tell me these things like Leafly, and I can look up reviews, and I can ask my friends, because a lot of my friends are smoking the same stuff as me, because we all know the name. We can talk about what we like and what we don't like. But down here, it's like, you want some weed?
You're just getting it.
Here's some weed. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing that sucks, especially coming from California. I was so used to going to the dispensary. Like the pharmacy, just shopping, hey, let me get a pre-roll of that. Hey, what is this? How do you, and then they'll break it down to you. They're really educated at the dispensary. They know, how it's going to make you feel. If it is good for certain things, you can't eat, you have headaches, certain things, they're really good about those things.
Yeah. So that's what I'm missing down here in Georgia for sure. That kind of culture, it's very different.
It is very different.
And nobody around. I think the neighbor smokes, but nobody will talk about it. I asked my friends here, like, I think I smell some skunk from next door.
Right.
And they're like, oh, we don't know. We don't talk about it. I'm like, I'm gonna go over there. I think I'm gonna go over there one day and just be like, hey, do you want a joint? Like, this is how we can connect as people. Because I believe more of us are smoking out here than we think.
Yeah.
And you could know your neighbor better if you just talked about it.
Yeah. I've met so many people over weed conversations.
Next up, we're checking in with Stanley Atkins II, also known as the Canamedic. He's a former Navy veteran and firefighter paramedic who is now the chapter director for Georgia's Minorities for Medical Marijuana. And he also knows all about the current state of cannabis policy in the state of Georgia and what the future might look like for folks in the South who want legal access to pot.
Thanks for joining me, Stanley. It's really good to meet you. What's your story in connection to the plant? I started consuming as an early teen, and I was actually kicked out of high school for possession.
Oh, wow.
I think I had like 7 grams, but they made it seem like I was like some big cartel or something. And I was like, I don't even sell it. I was going to smoke it, you know? So
Yeah.
I was sent to an alternative school with other juvenile delinquents because of that. But I quickly learned then, and teachers quickly learned, that I was stoned, but I wasn't stupid because once going to an alternative education system, I won Student of the Year. As I used as a teenager, I ended up going into the United States military, and I'm one of probably the only people you will ever meet in America that was discharged from the military 3 times for cannabis. Normally it's like
3?
Oh, yeah. I came home after I got out of the military, successfully went on to become a decorated firefighter paramedic. I spent 7.5 years in Metro Atlanta at Clayton County Fire Department as a firefighter paramedic, and I became ill in 2014. I've got a long history of gastrointestinal disease process and some autoimmune problems. And I really had to take a deep look into healthcare. At the time, I saw every specialist for the pain, the vomiting. I was unable to process solid foods for about almost 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Down to 121 pounds. I had a mild heart attack. Subsequently, I was sent to the Emory Winship Center for Cancer here in Atlanta at Emory University. And that's when I really took my own health into my own hands. I realized that the treatment teams didn't know definitive causes or origins for my chronic condition, but they wanted to proceed with semi-aggressive treatment. Things that they were proposing, lots of opioids that I was taking, and potentially low-dosage radiation therapy. And I started doing my research, and I realized that if I continued down the traditional pharmacological pathway, that I was potentially going to die. I stopped going against medical advice. I don't advise people to do that. And I really started to educate myself on alternative wellness. I began researching, plant-based medicines, alkaline diets. I learned about acidic disease processes, and that's what led me into cannabis, and start hearing more about CBD, cannabis patients, and how it was helping with vomiting, nausea, and some of the signs and symptoms of patients with chemo. So I joined social media. This was about 2015. I really began to educate myself, following conferences, forums, physicians, reading literature, white papers, research papers. I realized that my state was introducing cannabis legislation for a potential medical cannabis program, and the initial bill was shot down. So I began involving myself in advocacy in Georgia, watching conferences from abroad and taking information from other jurisdictions and seeing how we could introduce it here. So I started joining advocacy groups like Peachtree Normal, going to meetings, hearings, cannabis patient rallies. And that's what led me down to my state capitol.
So how's that been going, advocating at the Capitol? And what have been the fruits of your efforts?
I've actually been down at our state capitol every year for several years. You know how the process goes. We have some victories, we have some losses, but we never give up. Through this work, Georgia's not only by myself, as a host of other advocates. Georgia now has a medical cannabis program. We have a total of 17 qualifying conditions. 2 of the conditions that I was strongly advocating for were PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, and chronic pain. And so now we have roughly 17,000 registered patients in the state of Georgia.
Wow.
As compared to a lot of other states, that's not a lot, but we're moving forward.
So tell me what's going on with decriminalization.
I've been a part of 3 successful decriminalization efforts here in Georgia. I was a part of the city of Atlanta, which took us quite a while, but we successfully did it. I was a part of the city of South Fulton, Georgia, which is the number 1 minority populated city in North America. And I was a part of the city of Macon, spring 2019. These efforts have, although we're not legal or adult use, these efforts have potentially changed the lives of tens of thousands of citizens. And what it did was it replaced an arrest with a $75 fine.
Oh, wow. That's such a huge difference in somebody's life. And also they don't get that on their record, right?
No. It's a simple citation similar to jaywalking.
And that's for if you're in possession of anything up to an ounce?
Yes, 28 grams or less. Now, there are situations to where it is at the discretion of law enforcement to still make an arrest. So I tell people you can't have, a half an ounce on you and committing other crimes. So if there's a fight or there's an accident or there's another crime in progress, you can then be prosecuted. Yes.
So what is it right now that folks are legally allowed to do in Georgia, and what will they get in trouble for?
Okay, so in Georgia, legally, now the decriminalization is not statewide. I think we have a total of 12 jurisdictions. There may have been a couple more added during the pandemic, but I know some areas in North Georgia, Central Georgia, South Georgia, the major cities in Georgia, many of them have decriminalized. CBD products are legal, smokable flower, CBD. Delta 8 is currently legal in most jurisdictions. There have been some smoke shops in other jurisdictions around the state that have been raided for sales of Delta 8 products. But the Delta 8, the CBD and hemp market is thriving and flourishing in Georgia. Under our medical program, patients that have one of the 17 qualifying conditions, they are not allowed to possess flower. So our medical program is considered a low THC oil program. And what that means is patients that have a card or a caregiver that has a card, they are allowed to be in possession of up to 20 fluid ounces of low THC oil. And low THC oil, defined in the state of Georgia, is a oil concentrate that has no more than a 5% THC concentration by volume. I know.
That's almost nothing. Where would they get these from? Who's producing it and who's selling it?
So that's where the cloudiness has come from in Georgia. We've called our program since 2015. A lot of times people call it the box of empty promises. Like we got a box, they promise all these things, and when you open the box, the medical cannabis box, it's empty. So for the past 5 years, patients have not been able to legally obtain their low THC oil. The current program it's pretty much a reciprocity program, protection program. So if you're pulled over and you're in possession of it, the card provides protection for the patients involved. And the products that are covered are oils, tinctures, salves, topicals, suppositories, and I think that's about it.
Why do you think the program's so limited?
The reason our program is so strict is that our legislators did not want any part of our program to remotely resemble an adult use or recreational program. So in Georgia, when it comes to a low THC oil program, we are the highest of that type of program. So low THC oil states, there are other states that have similar laws to Georgia, and many of them, their THC concentration percentage limit is 1% to 2.5% THC.
You could get more still in the legacy market, right? So how successful do you think these programs really are going to be?
I think our program is going to be successful. And the reason I say that, because if we save one life, then it was a success.
Yeah.
It's what we're gauging the success as. Are we basing it on Colorado, California, Massachusetts, Michigan, Florida? Our success will look different than everyone else's. It's kind of like practicing yoga. I practice yoga. And when I tell people your practice is not going to look like everyone else's practice, it's your practice. But for a lot of patients in Georgia, that 5% THC is enough to help mitigate some of their chronic disease processes. For some of the pediatrics with rare seizures disorders, for some of the other neurological degenerative diseases, that THC, that small amount of THC is enough for some patients to produce enough of an entourage effect to actually provide some relief. But we have a long way to go because we, as advocates, we are going to be pushing for an unlimited cap on THC percentage, as well as the introduction of flower and combustibles along with consumables. Patients deserve a right to not be bottlenecked into what you want them to have, and they should have an opportunity to have a broad spectrum of products because not everything works for everyone. What works for Brit may not work for Stanley.
And I was speaking to somebody down here who actually used to sell in the legacy market, but she said that some of the most requested items are edibles. Folks are not really interested in smoking too much flower since it's still illegal and they could get into trouble if you smell it. It's not really, something you can do when you step outside of a bar. You can't just light up here or somebody might smell it. So a lot of folks down here seem to like taking edibles.
We're seeing an increase in edible consumption